My pathway now is about dynamic leadership. And in most of the clubs where I gave and delivered speeches, they chose to hear leadership, but they weren't focused on the word dynamic. So put your mics on. Anyone, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word dynamic? Anyone? Just one word.
Dynamos.
Dynamo. Energy.
Excitement.
Excitement. All right. The reason I chose that was because I said, I was going through the pathways. I said, which one am I going to take next? Right? I said, dynamic sounds good. And I heard and I saw those three words. Now, I found out that in many clubs, they were not interested in being dynamic. They didn't want to change. They just wanted to stay the way they were. And yet, funnily, some of them were on the dynamic leadership path. Can I hear a statement from anybody? How do you think that's gonna work? If people don't like change, but they're officers and they're on dynamic leadership. Anyone, just give me any scenario in mind. What happens when that happens?
No bueno, not good.
Tension.
Yeah, there's stagnant. There's no growth.
There you go. That is why I tell people, understand what the pathways is about. Not because it has a fancy name, because everybody wants to be a dynamic leader. But then again, I said, 2020, 21, 22, the people who survived in business were the ones who were dynamic, true or false.
True.
There you go. Now, although in all pathways, we talk about communication style, leadership style, and the mentoring. It's in every pathway, consistent. No matter how many pathways you take, you're gonna take that in level 1 and 2. But I ask people, what you used as your communication style and leadership style pre-pandemic, can I ask you in this Zoom room, do you think it's still gonna work if you didn't do any change during the pandemic times and you're running a business?
Nope.
There you go. The most obvious one is going on Zoom. It is, here's where dynamic comes in for me. I'm doing reflect on your path now for this 10 to 12 minutes. And it's about the journey all through the 5 levels of this pathway. Interestingly, I do deliver in various countries, and you will see how the pandemic hit them, how their culture made them think the way they do, and how pathways either failed or went even more than succeeded. For some, it was a perfect opportunity. Opportunity? And people say, we're losing members and clubs are closing down. I said, well, I regularly visited all throughout the past year and a half, clubs that were born because of the pandemic, clubs that were born because of Zoom. Just imagine there's this one club. Imagine, no kidding. To set it up, we need 20 people, right? To become 20 members. And they got it from 17 countries. Yes. It's all about perspectives. Think about it. If we didn't have Zoom and we didn't have dynamic leadership mindset, how are we going to be face-to-face, setting up a club with people who are physically in 17 countries. I'm not saying who's right or wrong, but just keep that picture in mind. And the way things are today, that's the way things are going to be. We're never going to go back to the way it was. Yes, we're going to go face to face, but think of the opportunity. Just think, I tell people for dynamic leadership, how much we learn from people who are extremely different. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm going to quickly segue into a scenario where I visited as a regular guest a country that is extremely traditional. Extremely. I was not properly introduced as a master of change. I was not properly introduced as someone who's talking about how to make change happen. So you realize I got the worst evaluation ever. So I'm not saying what's wrong. I'm just saying it is all part of dynamic leadership to know the Sesame Street song. And it goes, who are the people in your neighborhood? You have to know who the people are in your neighborhood. And what was sad was the speech I delivered was all of 18 to 20 minutes panel discussion on how to make change work in your favor. So critical for dynamic leadership is to know all the players in the game. In the good old days where you had people from the same town, the same city, it's easy because you knew all the people. Am I making sense so far? But that's a little tip. If you want to grow, be ready to think everyone is different and no one is the same. So that addresses your basic in pathways, which is what is your communication style? And I have learned because of my profession in talk show media that it's never about me. Never, like never, never. And I had to learn that the hard way when the station manager told me that when I was early in the game, right? And he said, people don't really care how bright you are. Okay. They don't really care about your achievements. I'm like, okay. And then, interestingly, the station manager told me, remember, Vivien, they must like you, they must like to listen to you, and they must like to see you. Because remember, if you don't have viewers, you don't have a show. Remember, no sandwich method there. Station managers just tell you this is the rule. You want a show, you want to be in the station, this is it. You don't like, you don't have a show, you're not in this station, goodbye. You're not even here next week. And I started thinking, everyone now on Zoom, in Pathways, in this wonderful organization, is in a talk show. Because that's what we all do, right? And, well, we can go on and on and on for communication styles. And I remind people, it's nice when you're solo and you see yourself. Nice. However, I strongly recommend it's nicer if you put your view on gallery and look if anyone's watching or listening to you. I have actually seen people stand up, walk out, take a break when someone was boring them to tears. So again, remember, we are all at this point in time in the Carmichael talk show. So much for communication styles. For leadership styles, again, who are the people in your neighborhood? How do they like to be led? Again, in another club, out of this country, not in mine, not in your country, I was told to be a leader. You should never be funny. Gasp! Gasp! I'm an improv artist. I'm an improv performer. I even took engaging humor despite what I do just to see how Pathways does it and how I can serve better. And I would love, like, this club is excellent. You're all witty and wise. Please take the engaging humor pathway and see how you can use that to your advantage. And I was not allowed. Yes. Again, who are the people in your neighborhood? Now, why am I telling you all this? Because two things that we have in the dynamic leadership pathways that we don't have in other pathways is how to negotiate and how to manage change. You've heard this before, so it's going to be a quick review for you. Negotiation, win-lose, lose-win, win-win, or lose-lose. At the end of my speech, I would like you to think of scenarios in your life where you got a win-win and where you got a lose-lose. I would like to think by now you've figured out not what to do, but what to not do. And as far as managed change is concerned, I found out that majority of people who don't like change, it's because they didn't know enough and they were afraid that they would fail. And people are afraid to fail. So it was fear, F-E-A-R, false expectations appearing real, like, what if? I remember the time when. So if anything's gonna be new, it should be properly rolled out and then tell them quickly how it worked for you and how it could work for them. It's just like, hey guys, here, like when you courted your lady love in your life. Managing change and negotiating for change is best looked at as getting someone to love you as much as you love them. That's my take on dynamic leadership. It's all about loving them so they love you back. You hold hands and make change happen. Sending you love from Manila. Mwah.